Hey guys, welcome back to AZ Triumphster. Up at Dean Speed, up at the shop today, working on the KZ yet again. No surprise there. Today's kind of a miscellaneous day. Let me show you what we got going on. Micah just pulled the lower triple out of the freezer.
Delicious.
Right. And so we're trying to basically fit the bearings, lower bearing on this. It's going to be a press fit, and he's just machining a tool to do that. And what we've already got over here is the bearing races in the neck. Let's see if we can get the lower. Yeah. That's it. And yeah, so it's a set of all balls bearings, the triple. So we'll be pressing that in just a moment because, oh, and the other thing is he made some spring centering spacers, as you can see here, on both ends. A little tough to see, but essentially he's working on the other spring here to be able to do that. And yeah, so the idea today is to reassemble the front end, but not permanently. Mount the rear wheel and the front wheel, put the risers on and some temporary handlebars, and try to get an idea of what this whole thing is supposed to look like with the factory wheels. So originally, and this was such a long time ago that I actually sketched out this build, which I'll show you right here. And I had it in mind the whole time to have larger diameter wheels, skinnier width, and so I was trying to run with that. And you know, I figured 21-inch front and rear, and probably like your typical 3-inch, 3.5-inch wide tire, some old school vintage tread. So I kind of started out the search recently because we've been talking about a rear fender. Can't really fit up a rear fender, custom rear fender, until you know your wheel diameter and width and all that stuff. So I called a local place that will lace and true wheels, mount tires, balance everything. But I told them I have this KZ400 with these. I want to use the factory hubs and I want to build off of those. What should I do? It's like, okay, well, you're going to need custom spokes, so reach out to this shop in California. So I reached out to that shop, had a conversation with them last week, and it was a bit eye-opening. Just to give you an idea, because I want to coat the spokes and the wheel and the hub and then have it all assembled. So to have just one wheel, oh, by the way, let me pause. My front wheel is 40 spoke, which is extremely common. My rear wheel is 36 spoke. That complicates things. 36 spoke is most common with dirt bikes and adventure bikes. They don't make them very wide when they're 36 spoke. So more or less, I'm looking at having to have a custom rim made for the 36 spokes that will then lace up to the 36 spoke hub, factory hub. It's a drum brake. So the spokes and the wheel, raw, not coated, not laced, just the pieces, not including shipping, is about $400. One wheel. Then I have to have the components coated, then the wheel laced and trued. I have to buy a new tire and have that tube and tire mounted and balanced. I'm estimating that one wheel, when it's all said and done, is probably going to be in the ballpark of about $700. And I know you guys are looking at this cantilever rear suspension and all this crazy stuff I'm doing with this build and thinking, well, do it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's more than I want to spend on some wheels. So I have some other kind of bikes that I've seen over time that I've taken some inspiration from that I think I'm going to try. So yeah, we're mounting up the factory wheels to try and get a visual. Ride height too is a big part of this puzzle because with a 21-inch front and rear, it adds a little bit of ride height, which is good. Ground clearance is good, but so we're gonna see. I'm hoping that these wheels, factory ones on, I fall in love with them. Maybe just do a different tire, find a matching size, diameter and width, because they're both 18-inch rims. So if I have the matching front and rear tires, I think that'll help with the continuity and the symmetry to like front and rear. So, but that's what we're working toward. Hopefully we'll be able to get that done and have a visual idea here. Okay, here's where we are at. Whew. It's been interesting getting to this point. Obviously you can tell, well, there's a few things to mention here. You can see that the fork tubes are slid way up. So a couple of notes about that. First and foremost, the bike, even with mica on it, doesn't weigh enough to really engage the suspension, the front suspension action. And then second to that, or maybe primary to that, more importantly, is to get us close to the ride height where the frame is going to be level, which you can see it's not yet. Fork tubes had to slide way up. In fact, we got a 0 degree, compared to the ground when the lower triple was basically right up against these dust seals. So it would appear we're going to have to make a front end for this. But so be it. Yeah, and the fork tubes had to come up so much that we ended up having to dig up some risers that we could bolt to this that would move the handlebars out of the way. So these, so we could make a field goal. And these are just some bars we had laying around the shop. Clamped the tank on, lifted the front of it, so it's kind of in the ballpark as far as the tank level. When it's all said and done, probably drop the front a hair. But this was just to try to get an idea of front and rear wheel, tire, etc. And I think, other than the need to match the sidewall, total diameter and width, front and rear tire, I think this is going to work. If they were like 16-inch rims, that wouldn't have been great for this. But I think these 18s look fantastic, so I think we're going to run with it. And yeah, so there it is. That's what we accomplished today.
All right, suspension loaded with 250 something pounds.
That's legit.
Actually feels pretty good.
Yeah, I think with the tire in place, yeah, obviously that front's not doing a whole lot, but that's fine. That's sick.
And then unload.
Okay, so we wrapped up, cleaned up, headed out a little bit earlier than we usually do. Again, I think it was just because today was a miscellaneous day and it's overcast and rainy and gloomy, and I don't know, just kind of want to go home and relax. But Micah says he really enjoys doing the machining, especially of those spacers and making the axle and making our own castle nut for that axle and so on and so on, which is great. So I reassembled the front end. It's funny. I spent a decent amount of money and time on finding the components to be able to build a functioning set of front forks for this bike, and probably not going to end up using them, so I don't know, probably have to rehome them. But I'm hard pressed to go with a smaller tire diameter than what I'm running on the rear right now. There's about it's nearly 1 inch diameter difference, 1 inch difference between the front and rear tire diameter, and it's already a very small motorcycle, so I'd hate to go any smaller with the diameter. So I don't know, considerably I could run the same front, what's on the rear I could run on the front. I could, that's a tough one. I don't know, maybe I'll just buy one of these vintage tread tires and kind of compare the diameter, or hope for something that's a little bit taller. Just kind of see how it goes. But that's for another day. I think Micah said next we get together on this, we're probably going to start working on the gas tank. You can assume we'll work on the rear fender once we get the wheel and tire combo sorted out. So, but I certainly hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a good weekend for me, being able to get the frame rolling. So really, really cool to be able to have that. So anyways, guys, thanks for hanging out, and stay safe out there.